and welcome back to my corner of the internet. I'm Shannon, and today I've got another book talk video to share with you guys. This week's book was actually recommended to me by one of you guys, my friend Abby over at the channel Abadabs. She recommended this in the comment section of one of my other book talk videos, and when I saw her recommendation, I recognized the author's name and I realized I had read books by this woman before. So I was like, okay, so I added it to my shopping cart on Amazon and I finally read it. So let's jump into the book we're talking about today is called Then She Was Gone by Lisa Jewell. The other book that I'd read by Lisa Jewell was called The Girls in the Garden, and I've actually got another book talk video on that book, so I will try to remember to link it down below in case you're interested in hearing about that one. So this book, I think a lot of you guys would love it. It's kind of like a thriller, a bit of a mystery, and it was a fun read. It's easy to read. You know, some books, no matter how good the story is, it just takes a while to get through. But this was one of those kind of books where you sit down and you can get through it in 1 or 2 sittings because it goes down so smooth. So let's talk a bit about it. So as always, the first portion of this, I'm not going to give away any spoilers. I'm just going to tell you a bit about the book, and then for the end of the video, we'll add some spoilers in for anyone who wants to know how it ends, but maybe they're not necessarily going to read the book, or even if they are, they don't mind spoilers. Here we go. So the book centers around a woman named Laurel Mack. She's middle-aged, and a number of years ago, one morning, her 15-year-old daughter walked out the front door, headed to the library, and she was never seen again. For many years, Laurel, of course, searched for any sort of meaning or clue or something to help her find her daughter, but she just never could. And during that period, her marriage fell apart, as I hear a lot of times it does when like a child either passes away or goes missing. I feel like it's either going to really solidify the strength of a marriage or it's going to fall apart. There seems to be no real middle ground there, which is understandable. So her marriage falls apart. You know, here we are 10 years later. She still very much respects and loves her ex-husband. He feels the same way. They just couldn't make it work as a pair anymore. The two of them, they have 2 other children who really felt after their sister, Ellie, disappeared that they lost their mom because she was so focused on her grief and trying to find her daughter. And the thing about it too was Ellie was the golden girl. She was just smart, beautiful, lovely, everything that, you know, makes up the golden girl in the family. The book a lot of times goes from present tense to past tense, and then as we get into the second half of the book, it switches point of views entirely to a few other different characters. So when it's in Laurel's perspective entirely during like the first half of the book, it goes back and forth between present and then past, and it switches perspectives. Sometimes it's first person, sometimes it's third person. So in the present, we know that Laurel has just met a man. His name is Floyd, and he seems too good to be true, which, as we know, if someone seems too good to be true, they probably are. So she's met him at a chance encounter. She was just sitting alone in a restaurant or a bar, and he approaches her and they hit it off, and she finds him very attractive. She's just taken with him right off the bat. There's something familiar about him that she really likes, and yeah, she's just real pleased that she's met him. And she feels like finally, after so many years, she's ready to move on, let love back into her life, and she's ready to do it with Floyd. So as we get to know her a bit more and Floyd a bit more, we learn that Floyd has a young daughter who's, I think, about like 11 years old, 10 or 11 years old, 9, 10, 11, something like that. And when she meets this daughter, whose name is Poppy, she's struck immediately by how similar this child looks to her missing daughter, Ellie. And, you know, she kind of thinks like, well, that's real weird. And, you know, she kind of just brushes it off as there's been plenty of young people she's seen that her brain connects to Ellie just because she's constantly looking for her daughter. So she's seeing like the features and the similarities in just anybody, you know? So as much as she tries to brush it off, she kind of can't. And she doesn't know why it feels weird. And then the more time she spends with Floyd, that starts to feel weird. And it's all just, she's constantly trying to shove down these feelings, but they keep coming back to the surface, as those kind of feelings do, because our gut, you know, our guts want us to listen to them. So it also goes back to the past to sort of let us know a bit about Ellie, get to know her a little bit. What kind of girl was she? So like we said, you know, she was a top student, beautiful, very nice. She had this beautiful boyfriend named Theo, who she was crazy about, and he was crazy about her. And she, at one point, had to get a tutor for math because there was something she was struggling with, and she had her finals coming up in a couple of weeks. And she just really wanted to get someone in who could just help her sort of fine-tune her math skills, because it was important to her that she do extremely well. So she ends up with this tutor whose name is Noelle, and she's like, at the time when Ellie meets her, she's like a 40-year-old Irish woman who's now living in London. She's very bright. She's a teacher. She picks up these tutoring gigs to help, you know, compensate her income. And is she a teacher? I may be making that up, but she has a good job, whatever it is. Maybe it's some sort of math job. I don't know. But she's also tutoring to make money. So we get to know her a little bit too through Ellie's eyes, and she's kind of weird, this Noelle. Ellie doesn't really get a great vibe from her. Noelle keeps bringing her these weird gifts, like lip balms and things like that, and it just starts to make Ellie uncomfortable. And after a little bit, she feels like she has a big enough grip on the subject, so she asks her mom to cancel it, and we kind of think that that's that. And so, yeah, the book is, it's well written. Lisa Jewell's a good writer. She knows how to spin a thriller in a way that keeps your interest the whole time. And like, I couldn't put it down. Is it the best book I've ever read? No, but I loved it. I had fun reading it. There's a lot of layers going on in this book. You know, it's about coming to terms with loss. It's about how do you move on? And then there's also the sort of mystery to it. I will warn you this though. The mystery, the whodunit part of the mystery is very, very easy to predict. Right off the bat, as we're reading, once Ellie goes missing, and I assume everyone else kind of had this experience too, you know exactly who did what. It's not a big reveal at the end or anything like that. You know, the whole time you know, even before you're specifically told, you know. And then you're specifically told pretty early on. So the story's not so much about who did it, it's more about why did they do this? Because that's the thing that kept me questioning it for a long time. So yeah, it's less of a who and more of a why. So if you're reading it and you're like, obviously I know who did this. Yeah, I know, but keep going. It's a good story. And if you like mysteries and thrillers and stories about families and things like that, I think you'd like it. So yes, now's the time to tune out if you don't want any spoilers. So thanks you guys, and I will see you tomorrow, probably, if not Monday. So now for the rest of us who want to know the spoilers, let's get into it. So in case you couldn't pick it up yet from how little I said before, but you might have already picked it up too, it was Noelle, the tutor. She's who kidnapped Ellie. So what happens is she goes out, Ellie goes out the front door to go to the library, and on the street she sees Ellie, and Ellie approaches her and sort of talks to her, And then after a while, she invites Ellie over to her home, which was fairly nearby. And Ellie at first is kind of like, well, no, I gotta go to the library, but she feels a little bad, and so she goes. Once she's there, Noelle won't let her leave. She sets her up down in the basement where she has put together a bedroom, and yeah, she's left down there. So at first, Noelle tries to make it as pleasant for her as possible. She gets her some hamsters to take care of. She gets her some books. She's feeding her well, and time begins to pass. Then what we find out is that Floyd, if you'll remember, Laurel's new boyfriend, he used to be involved with Noelle. And what happened was, him and Noelle were dating, but he wasn't really that interested in her. They had a physical relationship, like he'd call her up when he was home and alone and bored, and she'd come over, and though what she wanted was a real relationship, she'd take him however she could get him because she was lonely. And eventually she gets pregnant, and she's kind of like, yes, this is how I'm going to build a relationship with Floyd. He's going to be the father to my child, because she's seen him as a dad, because he's got another daughter from his ex-wife who's much older. She's seen him be a good dad to her, so she's like, yep, he's a good dad. This is how I'm going to get him, and she's all set. They go to a ultrasound appointment, and he's holding her hand, and she's laying on the table. And then as they're doing the ultrasound, they're told that the baby, like she's miscarried. The baby's not responsive. And she's so disappointed, and she sees the disappointment on Floyd's face, and then she's kind of like, well, okay. So she keeps trying to get pregnant, even though he thinks that they're using birth control. But she can't get pregnant. So in her mind, she's kind of become obsessed with Ellie from their tutoring days, and she's also a little mad that the tutoring got canceled. And when she sees Ellie on the street, she kind of looks at it as an opportunity to get this girl, get her pregnant, claim the baby as her own. Like, she's just thinking up this totally insane plan for how she's going to get a baby and keep Floyd. So she kidnaps Ellie, purchases some sperm on the internet. She drugs Ellie and then inseminates her. Like, and it takes. And then Ellie's pregnant. Noelle continues to feed her well, take good care of her, so the baby keeps growing. After a few months, even though she's pregnant, like she's wearing a fake pregnancy belly whenever she's around Floyd, like as appropriate to how many months along she should be, he tells her that he doesn't think it's working out, and he breaks up with her. He tells her he doesn't want to have any more physical relationship with her. He just wants to, you know, he'll be the father to this baby, but that's about it. Needless to say, that enrages her, and she goes home, and she really stops caring for Ellie as well as she should. She still feeds her, but like she no longer cares about keeping her and the baby good and healthy. So after that, from Floyd's point of view, when he's talking to Laurel, he tells her that the mother of his child had skipped town. She left the baby on his doorstep one night and left. So that's what we're thinking happened. But that gets unraveled as we learn more about the story. So the baby's born. Noelle goes down and takes the baby from Ellie, and then she locks the door and walks away, and it's a long time before she goes back in. And during that period when she's away, Ellie dies. Noelle gets rid of the body and starts to live with this baby as though it is her own. And so she goes out to Floyd's house. She dolls herself up, goes out to Floyd's house to introduce him to the baby. It's been a couple months, like a couple months have passed since the baby was born at this point. So she goes on out, introduces Floyd to the baby. He's smitten. and he wants to have a part in raising her, just no part with Noelle on a personal romantic basis. So that goes on for a little while. Noelle's not a great mom. She doesn't really care about the baby, and Floyd starts to notice that when like Ellie comes, not Ellie, Poppy, when the baby Poppy comes to his house, she's like, she looks neglected, she looks dirty, she looks like, all she wants is, she screams for sweets and sugar, and whenever he tries to feed her good food, you know, it takes a few days of being in his care before she'll actually eat the good food and get a taste back for it. So after a bit of time, he tells Noelle that he wants full custody. He tells her that he wants full custody, and this enrages her, so she decides that she's going to go home, pack up her things, and she's going to take the baby back to Ireland where her family is, and like her family can help her deal with this baby, and she's getting as far away as she can from him. So on the night when she's all packed, she goes to his house to see him one last time. She blurts out while she's there that the baby's not even his, that it's some kid's, that the mother was some kid and the father was just a sperm donor, and he snaps. He lunges at her, and then the part of the story that's told from her point of view, it kind of leaves off there. So then we get back to present day with Laurel and Floyd. Floyd has met all of Laurel's family, and they all think he's great, and that makes her so happy, of course. But there's that nagging feeling where she's like, I don't know what's wrong, but something's wrong, because as we've gotten to know Poppy, she's a very precocious child. She acts more like a short, tiny adult than a 10-year-old. She's homeschooled. She has no relationships with children of her own age, and she's just a bit of a weird kid, even though she still looks so much like Ellie. So of course now we know that Poppy is Laurel's biological granddaughter, because her daughter Ellie was the mom. And we find out towards the end that Floyd knows this too. Floyd had found out, after his interaction, that final interaction with Noelle, he finds out that he does his research and he finds out who the mother was of this baby. He finds Laurel. He kind of gets a feeling for her, and he decides that he's got to reach out. And of course he doesn't know how, but he wants Poppy in this woman's life, because he's starting to just feel like she needs more family. And he makes a plan. And so his plan was to, at first, it wasn't so much to seduce Laurel, because he didn't think that Laurel would reciprocate any sort of feelings if he made a move on her. But he tried his best by being super creepy, and so he knew of Laurel, but he also knew of her ex-husband Paul from like all the interviews and stuff at the time when Ellie went missing 10 years ago. So he starts to dress like Paul, like he starts to emulate Paul in a way so that he knows he's kind of her physical type, if nothing else. And then he kind of studies Paul's mannerisms and picks up on them a bit. And that's why when she first meets him, she's drawn to him, because he seems very familiar. And like I said, she has a lot of love and respect left over for her husband, her ex-husband. They just couldn't make it work as partners. So then Christmas Eve rolls around, and Laurel's about to, she's kind of starting to put everything together, and she doesn't know exactly what it is yet, but she knows that she has to get away from him. She's getting real bad vibes, and she's like, I need to end this right now. So she goes to his house on Christmas Eve. He says like, hey, I've got a Christmas gift for you. Poppy's upstairs wrapping presents. I've got to go get part 2 of the gift from the car. Part 1 is in my office. There's a video on the computer. Just press play and listen to it. So she goes in, she does it. It's this huge spiel about him telling her the truth, telling her that about Ellie, about Noelle, about Poppy. And then he says, we get the end of the Noelle story because we get it from his point of view now. And, you know, when Noelle ends it saying he attacked her, well, he did, and he ended up accidentally killing her by when he knocked her off the chair. She smacked her head on the, like on the floor or on a coffee table edge or something. And so he says, listen, I have to go. I have to leave. The house is Poppy's. Do with it whatever you want. Noelle's buried under a tree in the backyard. You're never gonna see me again. Please take care of Poppy. I want her to be with her maternal, you know, her maternal grandmother, her family. It's what I've wanted for a while now. I just didn't know how to make it happen. I'm not cut out to be a dad. I don't want this. I have to go. And then that's sort of where it leaves off. So, like I say, it's a real fast-paced, interesting read. It's a lot of fun. There are some things that, while I was reading it, I couldn't understand the author's reasoning for having it like that. But that's okay. That's how she chose it. None of them were too, in my opinion, detrimental to the story. I just thought some things were a little clumsy and like maybe a little unnecessary, but just my opinion. Overall, like I said, I loved the book. Lisa Jewell's a great writer. She's very engaging. Some writers aren't. You know, you just kind of, you don't connect with the writer so much. But I find with Lisa Jewell you really do. Or at least I really do. And I look forward to reading more of her stories. She's a great storyteller. So yeah, there you go, you guys. I hope you enjoyed this. Like I said, I'll have another video up tomorrow. If not tomorrow, definitely Monday. And I hope you have a great weekend. And I will talk to you guys then. Bye.